The room was dark, filled with the smell of rust and damp stone. Cold chains wrapped around the alien girl's thin wrists and ankles, holding her tight against the wall. Her eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, wide with terror, waiting for the sound she feared most. Human footsteps. She had been told stories since childhood, stories whispered like nightmares. Humans were monsters, they said, creatures who enjoyed breaking others for fun. If you fell into their hands, there would be no mercy, only pain. So when the heavy metal door groaned open, her heart almost stopped. A tall figure entered, his step steady but not hurried. The torchlight flickered across his face, showing sharp lines, tired eyes, and a strength that made her shrink back against the wall. Her breathing grew fast, shallow, every muscle in her body bracing for the first blow. She closed her eyes tight, waiting for pain, waiting for torture, waiting for screams to fill the room, but nothing came. Instead, she heard the clink of metal, soft, careful. She opened one eye, confused. The human was kneeling, his hand on the lock of her chains, not a weapon in sight. His voice, low and calm, broke the silence. "You're trembling," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you." The words made no sense to her. Not here to hurt. That was impossible. Humans never spared, never comforted, never showed kindness. She thought it was a trick, a cruel game before the real pain began. Her throat burned as she whispered, Why free me? What do you want?" The man didn't answer right away. Instead, the chain at her ankle loosened, falling heavy onto the floor. The sound echoed through the dark room, but it was not the sound of pain. It was the sound of release. Her heart raced, her mind screamed at her to run, but her body stayed frozen, staring at him. He looked at her with no cruelty, no hunger for power, only a strange softness in his eyes. She could not understand it. Her people had taught her to expect only torture, only broken bones and shattered pride, and yet, this human was giving her something she had never known before, gentleness. Her lips shook, unable to believe. "Do you not enjoy hurting me?" she asked, her voice small, almost breaking. The man looked at her for a long moment, his hand hovering near the last chain. "No," he said at last. "You've been hurt enough already." The words sank deep into her, more cutting than any blade. She felt her chest tighten with confusion, with fear, with something else she could not name. He undid the final lock, the chain slid away, and for the first time in many moons, her body was free. Yet freedom felt heavier than chains, because she did not know why it was given. She pulled her knees close, shivering in the dark. The human stood and stepped back, giving her space instead of crowding her. This too confused her. Wasn't he supposed to use her, command her, break her spirit? Instead, he only said quietly, "Rest, you are safe here," before placing a small blanket on the ground near her. Her trembling hand touched the fabric, soft and warm. She looked up at him, eyes full of fear and questions, and though he turned away, leaving her with the blanket, the sound of chains still echoed in her mind. But this time, it was not the sound of torture. It was the sound of fear breaking, piece by piece. For the first time, she wondered if everything she had been told about humans was a lie.
The alien girl did not sleep that night. Even without the chains, her body stayed tense, her eyes never leaving the shadow where the human rested. He had given her a blanket, soft against her skin, but comfort felt like another trick, another step before pain. The man sat near the doorway, silent, keeping his distance. In the faint light, she studied him, searching for cruelty in his face, searching for the hunger of a torturer. But there was only weariness in his eyes, and something she could not name, something that felt too close to kindness. When the first light of morning slipped through the cracks in the wall, he moved. She stiffened, pulling the blanket tighter, her breath catching in her throat. The sound of metal made her flinch, but instead of a weapon, he carried a small container. He placed it on the ground between them and pushed it gently toward her. "Eat," he said softly. "You need strength." She stared at the food, suspicion sharp in her chest. Her people always said humans poisoned their captives slowly, making them weak. But hunger clawed inside her, sharper than fear. Her trembling hands reached forward, hesitating, then pulling back as if expecting a strike. He didn't move. He didn't force her. He only watched with calm patience, like he could wait forever. Finally, she picked a small piece of bread and brought it to her lips. The taste was plain but real, not poisoned, not cruel, only food. She chewed slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Her voice came out weak, a whisper torn between fear and disbelief. Why? Why do this? The man leaned back, resting his arms across his knees. His voice carried no anger, no mockery, only truth. Because no one should starve in chains. The word struck her harder than hunger ever had. Her heart beat fast, confusion battling with the memory of pain. Her mind screamed not to trust, but her body betrayed her. Warming at the sound of his voice, it was strange, terrifying, and new. She remembered the lashes from her masters, the whips and the burning brands. Humans were supposed to be worse than them, more savage, more cruel. Yet this man gave her food, gave her space, gave her something that felt dangerously close to care. Her hands shook as she took another bite. Every chew tasted of fear and hope mixed together. The man did not smile, but there was something gentle in the way he watched her, like he wanted her to survive, not suffer. After a long silence, she asked again, her voice trembling, "What do you want from me?" For a moment he said nothing, his eyes meeting hers. Then he answered with words she never expected. Nothing. Her heart raced at that single word. Nothing. Humans always wanted something. Obedience, blood, broken spirits, screams. But his voice carried no chains, no demands, only honesty. It scared her more than torture, because she did not know how to fight kindness. She pulled the blanket tighter, curling into herself. Her whisper broke the silence. "I don't understand you." The man stood, his tall form blocking the morning light. "You don't need to understand me now," he said, his tone steady. "Just know you are safe." He walked to the door, leaving her with the food and the blanket. The lock clicked behind him, but he had left her unchained, free inside the room. Her heart pounded in her chest. Safe, he had said. But how could she believe such words when her whole life was built on fear? And yet, as she looked at the half-eaten bread in her hands, warmth spread through her, a warmth she could not deny. That night, when shadows grew long again, she found herself waiting, not with fear, but with a dangerous, fragile hope that he would return. The night was long, but the alien girl did not sleep. Her body lay still beneath the blanket the human had given her, but her mind was not at rest. Every time her eyes closed, old memories rose like fire. The snap of a whip, the burn of hot metal pressed against her skin, the laughter of masters who enjoyed her cries. Her chest tightened, her breath came fast, and she curled into herself. Even here, unchained, she felt the weight of invisible shackles pulling her down. Her people had taught her that pain was the only thing she would ever know. They said humans were worse, that they found joy in tearing flesh apart, so why had this one given her food, water, and warmth? The door creaked open, and her eyes shot wide with fear. The human stepped inside, carrying a small lamp that chased away the shadows. She expected the lash, the blow, the cruel smile, but instead he set the lamp down and crouched near her. His voice was calm, steady like the glow of firelight. "You're shaking," he said. "Are you cold?" She turned her face away, shame and fear twisting inside her. He could not see the scars hidden beneath her skin, the burns that marked her past. If he saw them, he would know how weak she truly was. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I know what you will do. I've felt it before. I know the whips, the fire, the chains." Her words hung heavy in the air. For a long moment he did not answer, and her heart raced, waiting for the cruel laugh that always followed her pain. But when he finally spoke, his voice was low, heavy with something she could not name. "I am not them," he said firmly, "and I will never do those things to you." Her eyes stung, tears threatening to fall. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. She had been broken before for trusting the wrong hands. Her fingers clutched the blanket tight as if it could protect her. The man leaned closer, but not too close. His hands stayed open, showing no weapon, no whip, no chain. He picked up a piece of cloth and slowly held it out. "I only want to clean your wounds," he said. "Let me help you." She flinched when his fingers brushed her skin. Every touch felt like fire, but not the cruel fire of pain. This one burned differently. It was warm, almost gentle, a feeling she did not know how to understand. Her body trembled, expecting hurt, but instead the sting of medicine cooled her scars. Tears rolled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Her lips formed the words she had never dared to ask before. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why are you not hurting me?" The man looked into her eyes, and for a moment she thought she saw sadness there. His reply was simple, but it shook her more than any whip ever had. "Because you've been hurt enough." Her heart raced, her throat tight. No master had ever spoken such words to her. No one had ever said she had suffered too much. They always said she was made for pain, made to be broken, nothing more. But this human said she had suffered enough. It broke something inside her, something hard and cold that had lived there for years, and in its place, a dangerous warmth began to grow. She looked away, unable to face him. Her body still trembled, but not only from fear. Something new was awakening in her chest, something she could not control. It scared her, but deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, pleasure could be more than pain. That night, she lay awake again, but her thoughts were no longer only of whips and chains. They were also of his eyes, his voice, and the strange promise of gentleness she had never known. The human came again the next morning, his steps soft, his presence calm. The alien girl sat in the corner, clutching the blanket as if it were her only shield. She did not look at him at first, afraid that one glance would break the fragile safety she had begun to feel. But when she finally raised her eyes, he was not holding chains or weapons, only a small bowl of water and clean cloth. "Your wounds," he said quietly. "They need care." Her chest tightened, fear mixing with confusion. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, as if she mattered. She wanted to refuse, to pull away, but her body was weak, the burns and cuts aching. She whispered, "If you touch me, it will hurt." He shook his head gently, his voice steady. "I will be careful." He came closer, kneeling in front of her, moving slowly so she could see every motion. Her breath caught, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. When his fingers brushed her arm, she flinched so hard the bowl almost spilled. For an instant she thought pain would follow, searing, sharp, endless, but it never came. Instead, cool water slid across her skin, washing away the dirt. She gasped softly, staring at him with wide eyes. His touch was firm, but gentle, never cruel, never harsh. It was the first time she had ever felt human hands without fear of pain. The first time touch had not been a weapon. Her throat ached as memories tried to fight the present. The lash of a whip, the burn of fire, the sting of fists. All of them screamed that this could not be real, yet here he was, dabbing softly at her wounds, whispering, "You're safe." Her eyes blurred with tears, her lips trembling. "Why?" she asked again, the same question she had whispered before. "Why do you treat me this way?" The man paused, his hand resting just above her wrist. He looked at her with a gaze that felt like it could pierce through Eve. "Every scar, every wall she had built. Because you are more than chains," he said. "More than pain, more than what they told you to be." The words shook her, leaving her breathless. Her whole life, she had been told she was nothing but a tool, a body for suffering, a slave to cruelty. Now, for the first time, someone said she was more. The thought frightened her almost as much as it warmed her. She pulled the blanket tighter, trying to hide her trembling. But when his hand brushed against her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen, she froze. The touch was so soft it almost broke her. It was not the touch of a master, not the grip of control. It was simply human, simply kind. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her heart raced faster, her breathing shallow, every part of her body screamed to run, yet another part, deep inside, whispered to stay. The man finished tending her wounds and set the bowl aside. He did not demand thanks, did not ask anything in return. He only said softly, "You deserve better than pain," before standing and stepping back. She watched him, confusion and longing twisting in her chest. Her fingers brushed the spot where his hand had touched her cheek, warm even after he moved away. It felt strange, terrifying, and yet, it did not feel wrong. It felt like something her heart had been waiting for without knowing. That night, as she lay on the ground with the blanket around her, she closed her eyes and remembered the first touch. Not the whips, not the fire, not the chains, just his hand, gentle and warm against her skin. And for the first time in her life, she wished for a touch to return, not to end. The alien girl tried to act strong the next day. She sat upright, her chin lifted, her glowing eyes cold as stone. She wanted the human to think she was unbroken, untouchable. But inside, fear still lived, twisting with something new and frightening. Hope. When he entered the room carrying food and fresh water, she did not thank him. Instead, she looked away, pretending she didn't care. Her voice was sharp when she asked, "Why do you keep coming back? I am nothing to you." The man placed the food near her, not close enough to frighten her, not far enough to seem careless. "I come because you are someone," he said simply, "whether you believe it or not." His words cut deep, though she tried not to show it. Her people always told her she was nothing but a tool, a vessel for pain. They laughed when she cried, mocked her weakness, and punished her for wanting more. She had built a mask of silence, a mask of strength to survive, but that mask began to crack under his gaze. That night, when the shadows grew long and the cold sank deep into the walls, she broke. Her body shook as silent sobs escaped her, tears she had buried for years finally falling. She turned her face to the wall, clutching the blanket as if it were her last shield. She whispered into the darkness, "I am nothing. I am broken. I am only chains." The human's voice came from behind her, soft but firm. "You are not nothing." She gasped, not knowing he had stayed. She turned to see him sitting near the door, his back against the wall, watching her quietly. His eyes held no judgment, no amusement at her weakness, only steady warmth. "Do not lie to me," she said bitterly, her voice sharp even through tears. "My scars make me ugly. My weakness makes me useless. I am less than dust to my people." The man stood slowly, stepping closer but not reaching for her. His voice carried strength that made her heart tremble. "Your scars make you a survivor, not ugly," he said. "Your weakness is only proof that you are alive." Her mask shattered completely then. Her tears poured freely, her body shaking as years of pain spilled out. "I am tired," she sobbed. "So tired of being nothing, so tired of hurting, so tired of living in fear." For the first time, she did not resist when he moved closer. He knelt beside her, his hands still open and gentle. He did not force her, did not silence her, only wrapped his arms around her trembling form. She stiffened at first, her body bracing for the strike that never came. But as moments passed, she realized his embrace carried no cruelty, only warmth. Her tears soaked into his shirt, her sobs muffled against his chest, and in that moment, she felt something she had never known: safety. It was fragile, it was terrifying, but it was real. She whispered, broken and small, "Why do you care? Why me?" The man's answer came without hesitation. "Because someone has to show you that you are more than chains." Her heart ached at those words, aching in a way sharper than any whip, because deep inside, a part of her wanted to believe him. A part of her long buried beneath pain whispered that he might be telling the truth. When he finally pulled back, he did not demand she stop crying. He only brushed a tear from her cheek with the back of his hand, his touch soft. "Rest," he said gently. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." That night, wrapped in the blanket he had given her, she did not feel the same crushing loneliness as before. Her mask was gone, shattered in his arms, but in its place, something new began to grow, something she did not yet understand. The next morning, the alien girl woke to a sound she had not heard in years. It was not the clink of chains, not the snap of a whip, not the cruel laughter of masters. It was something softer, lighter, the human humming to himself as he stirred a pot over a small fire. She sat up slowly, clutching her blanket, her eyes suspicious yet curious. The smell of warm broth drifted through the room, strange but pleasant. Her stomach tightened with hunger, but pride and fear kept her silent. Finally, the human glanced at her with a faint smile. "You should eat," he said. "Your strength will return faster." She frowned, narrowing her eyes. "You act as if I am worth saving," she said sharply. "But I am nothing." The man shook his head, his voice calm. "You are not nothing, and I will prove it." He handed her a wooden spoon, then sat across from her with his own bowl. They ate in silence for a while, the warmth of the broth easing the cold in her bones, but her eyes never left him, studying every movement. Finally she asked, "Why do you smile? What reason do you have?" His answer came with a quiet chuckle. "Because sometimes we must choose to smile even when life is hard." A strange sound left his mouth, low, deep, full of life. It startled her so much she nearly dropped her spoon. "What was that?" she whispered wide-eyed. He looked at her in surprise, then laughed again. "This? It's laughter," he said. "You've never heard it?" Her cheeks warmed with shame. Laughter had never been a part of her world. Her people's sounds were cries, screams, and harsh orders. But laughter, that was something she had never known. The human leaned closer, his voice gentle. "It is the sound of joy," he explained, "of living, of finding light in the dark." She shook her head, unable to understand. "Joy does not exist," she said bitterly. "There is only pain." He leaned back, his eyes steady on hers. "Then let me teach you." The words unsettled her. Teach her? She had only ever been beaten into silence, trained through fear, yet he spoke as if there were other lessons to learn, lessons without pain. Later that day, he showed her a small flame he built with his hands. The fire crackled and danced, and he tossed a dry leaf into it. The flames leapt high, golden and wild. She gasped, stepping back in fear, but he only laughed softly. Not all fire burns to hurt, he said. Sometimes it warms, sometimes it protects. She stared at the fire, confusion stirring inside her. It was the same element her masters had used to brand her skin, to scar her forever. And yet here, in his hands, it was gentle, alive, even beautiful. That night, he told her a story by the fire. His words painted pictures in the air, tales of stars, of journeys, of people who fought not for cruelty, but for hope. She listened, at first with suspicion, then with growing wonder. No one had ever spoken to her in such a way, not as a tool or a slave, but as someone worth telling stories to. At one point, he laughed at his own tale, and without thinking, she let out a small sound. It was shaky, uncertain, but it was not a cry of pain. It was almost like laughter. She covered her mouth quickly, her eyes wide with shock. He looked at her, smiling softly. There it is, he said, the first sound of joy. Her chest tightened, her heart racing. Was this what he meant? Was this the strange lesson he wished to teach? She did not understand it fully, but something inside her shifted. For the first time, she wondered if life could hold more than fear. That night, as the fire's glow warmed her face, she whispered to herself, "Maybe he is right. Maybe there is something beyond pain." The alien girl sat by the fire that night, her eyes fixed on the flames as they danced. She tried to pretend she was only watching the fire, but her gaze often slid to the man sitting across from her. He leaned back, his arms resting loosely on his knees, his eyes half closed as if at peace. It unsettled her because she had never seen peace before, not in herself, not in anyone. Her heart beat strangely when she looked at him, faster than before. It was not the rhythm of fear, though fear still lingered. It was something different, something that made her chest feel tight and her skin feel warm. She pressed her hand against her heart, whispering under her breath, "What is this?" The man looked at her suddenly, and she froze. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She nodded quickly, clutching the blanket around her shoulders, but her voice betrayed her when she said, I feel strange." He tilted his head, concern flickering in his eyes. "Strange how?" She lowered her gaze, her cheeks heating. "When you sit near me, I feel restless," she admitted. "My body trembles, but not from fear. And when you touch me, I don't know how to explain." Silence hung between them, heavy and sharp. The human did not laugh, did not mock her confusion. Instead, his voice was steady, careful. "Perhaps you are feeling something new, something your people never allowed you to know." Her brows furrowed, her heart racing faster. "Something new," she whispered, "but I have only known pain. What else could there be?" He leaned forward slightly, his voice low. "There is more than pain," he said. "There is comfort, there is trust. There is warmth between two souls when they care for each other." The words burned into her, leaving her speechless. Warmth between two souls? Caring? These were not lessons she had ever been taught. Her people said closeness was weakness, that only pain could bind chains to flesh. But this human spoke of a bond without cruelty, without fear. That night, as she lay under the blanket, her body refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. Every time she remembered his touch, her skin tingled, her breath grew shallow. She buried her face in her arms, whispering to herself, "Why do I feel this way?" The next day, she followed him outside for the first time. The air was sharp and cool, the sky wide above her. Her legs trembled, weak from long days in chains, but he stayed beside her, steady and patient. At one point, she stumbled, falling against him, and his arms caught her before she hit the ground. For a moment, time stopped, her face pressed against his chest, her fingers gripping his shirt. His warmth surrounded her, strong yet gentle, and her heart thundered in her chest. She pushed away quickly, her cheeks burning. I can walk," she muttered, but her voice shook. The man did not laugh, did not tease her. He only gave a faint smile and nodded. "Then walk," he said, "but know that I will always catch you if you fall." Those words echoed in her mind long after they returned inside. Always catch her? No one had ever promised such a thing. Her masters only promised pain, her people only promised chains, yet here was a human promising to catch her. That night, as she lay awake once more, she touched her chest where her heart raced. She whispered to the darkness, "This is not fear. This is something else." Something deep inside her was awakening, something her people had never allowed her to feel, and though she was frightened of it, she could not stop longing for more. The days passed slowly, and for the first time in her life, the alien girl began to feel something like peace. The fire no longer frightened her, food no longer tasted like poison, and the human's presence no longer felt like a trap. But peace is fragile, and the world outside their small shelter had not forgotten her. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, the sound of voices carried through the trees. Sharp, cruel voices, the kind she knew too well. Her body froze, her blood turning cold. "They found me," she whispered, terror shaking her words. The man tensed immediately, his hand moving to the blade at his side. "Who?" he asked, his voice low but steady. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "My people, the hunters," she said. "They will not forgive me for being touched by you. They will call me corrupted, weak, unworthy." Before he could answer, shadows moved between the trees. Tall figures with glowing eyes and weapons gleaming in the fading light. They stepped into view, their sneers twisting into cruel smiles as they saw her. "There she is," one snarled, the little traitor, softened by a human. Her heart pounded, her knees threatening to give way. Every instinct screamed at her to bow her head, to surrender, to accept the chains once more, but the human stepped in front of her, his stance unshaken. "You won't take her," he said firmly, his voice carrying a weight that silenced even the wind. The hunters laughed, cruel and mocking. "Won't take her?" one spat. "She belongs to us, human. She was born for chains, she will die with chains." The girl trembled behind him, tears burning her eyes. Part of her wanted to run to them, to avoid the punishment that would surely come. But another part, a growing part, wanted to stay, wanted to believe in the human who had shown her kindness. One of the hunters stepped forward, raising his weapon. "Step aside, human, or we break you first." The man's voice did not waver. "I will not step aside," he said. "She is free now, and no one will chain her again." The girl gasped softly, her chest tightening. No one had ever spoken such words for her before. No one had ever claimed she could be free. Her masters always said freedom was a lie, that chains were her destiny. But here was a human standing against her people, risking his life for her. The hunters circled, their eyes burning with rage. "You dare to keep what is ours?" one growled. "She is not yours," the man replied, gripping his blade. "She never was." Fear and courage warred inside her as she watched. Every scar on her body screamed at her to kneel, to obey. But her heart, newly awakened, whispered that she was more. She clutched the blanket he had given her, her trembling lips forming the words she had never dared to speak. "I don't want to go back," she whispered to herself. "Not to chains, not to pain." The hunters heard her, and their fury grew. "You see, she is broken already," one hissed. "You poisoned her, human, but we will fix her with fire and iron." Her body shook, but this time it was not only from fear, it was from something rising within her, something fierce and desperate. She stepped closer to the human, her voice trembling but loud enough to be heard. "I am not broken. Not anymore." The hunters stared at her in shock. Her people never defied, never resisted. But here she was, standing beside a human, claiming a voice that had been stolen long ago. The man glanced at her, pride flickering in his eyes. "You are not broken," he said firmly. "You are free." The hunters roared in anger, weapons raised. The girl's heart pounded as the night filled with the promise of violence. The world outside had come for her, but for the first time, she was not facing it alone. The hunters closed in, their glowing eyes filled with fury. The alien girl's heart pounded, her body trembling as memories of chains pressed heavy against her skin. They had come to drag her back, to remind her of what she had always been told, that she was nothing more than a slave. But now the human stood before her, blade drawn, refusing to step aside. One of the hunters raised his weapon high, his voice cold and cruel. "You have two choices, girl," he spat. Return to us or die with the human. The words pierced her chest like knives. Her legs nearly gave out, her body torn between terror and the fragile hope she had found. The man turned his head slightly, his voice calm but firm. You don't have to go back, he told her. You can choose your own path. Her breath caught, her chest tightening. Choose. No one had ever given her a choice before. Her people decided, her masters commanded, her body obeyed. She had never been asked what she wanted, her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. If I return, they will torture me, she whispered. If I stay, they will kill you. The hunters laughed, their cruel voices echoing through the night. See how weak she is, one sneered. She will crawl back to us, just as she always has. Her knees buckled, her hands shaking. Every scar screamed at her to surrender, to kneel, to accept chains once more. But then she remembered the human's hands tending her wounds, his voice telling her she was more than pain. She remembered the warmth of his touch, the fire he showed her, the laughter he taught her. Her heart thundered with something she had never known before, courage. Her trembling lips formed the words she never thought she could say. I will not return. The hunters snarled, their eyes burning. You dare defy us? One roared. You belong to us, body and soul. Her tears streamed down her cheeks, but her voice grew, stronger. No, I belong to myself. The man stepped closer to her side, his blade steady. You heard her, he said coldly. She is free. The hunters raised their weapons, fury twisting their faces. You will regret this, they hissed. Both of you will burn for this defiance. The girl clutched the blanket around her shoulders, her heart hammering in her chest. For the first time she had chosen. Not chains, not silence, not fear, but freedom. Her body shook, but her spirit stood taller than ever before. She looked at the hunters with glowing eyes, her voice breaking, yet fierce. You cannot take me back, she cried, because I have seen something you will never give me. Kindness. The hunters roared and lunged forward, weapons flashing. The man raised his blade, his stance solid, ready to fight. The girl's heart raced as the clash began, the sound of steel meeting steel echoing in the night. Fear clawed at her, but deep inside she knew. Her choice was made, and there was no turning back. The battle raged around her, sparks flying as metal struck. She pressed her hands against her chest, whispering to herself, do not give up, do not run. You chose this path, you chose freedom. The hunters fought with fury, but the human fought with something stronger, with purpose. He was not fighting for power or dominance, he was fighting for her. Every strike, every movement carried the weight of his promise. At last, as the clash slowed, the hunters fell back, wounded and enraged. This is not over, one spat. We will return, and when we do, neither of you will survive. With that, they vanished into the trees, their threats lingering in the air like smoke. The girl collapsed to her knees, tears streaming, her chest rising and falling in heavy breaths. She looked up at the human, who still stood tall, blade in hand. Her voice was soft, shaking, but filled with something new. I chose you, she whispered. I chose freedom, even if it kills me. The man knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. You chose life, he said quietly, and I will fight to keep it yours. The night was heavy after the hunters fled, their threats still burning in the girl's ears. She sat trembling on the ground, the blanket clutched around her shoulders, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Her whole body shook, not just from fear, but from the weight of what she had done. For the first time she had chosen to stand, chosen not to return, chosen to believe in herself. The human cleaned his blade and knelt beside her, his eyes calm but sharp. They will come back, he said, and they will come stronger. Her heart tightened at the words, fear pressing heavy on her chest. Then I will be taken again, she whispered, and this time they will break me until there is nothing left. The man shook his head firmly, his hand resting lightly on her arm. No, he said, his voice steady. You are not going back, not while I live. His words sent a fire through her chest, a fire she had never felt before. It was not the fire of brands or chains, but a fire of courage, of strength, of something brighter than fear. She clenched her fists, her glowing eyes fixed on the ground. I don't want to be weak anymore, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. I want to fight. The man studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then I will teach you. Over the next days, he showed her how to stand without trembling, how to grip a weapon, how to face an enemy without lowering her eyes. At first her hands shook so much, she could barely lift the blade he gave her. Every swing felt clumsy, every stance unsteady, but he was patient, guiding her movements with gentle touches, steady words, and unshaken belief. Again, he would say, and she would raise the blade. Stronger, he urged, and she would strike harder. Her body ached, her scars burned, but she refused to stop. Each day she grew steadier, her strikes sharper, her fear weaker. One night, as they trained by the fire, he placed his hand over hers on the hilt of the blade. "Your strength is not in your scars," he said. "It is in your choice to fight, to live, to be free." Her throat tightened, tears burning her eyes. For so long she had been told her scars defined her, that pain was all she was. But now, for the first time, she believed she could be something else. The next evening, the hunters returned, their eyes glowing in the dark, their laughter cruel. They came with fire and chains, determined to drag her back. "Enough games," one hissed. "She belongs to us." The girl stepped forward before the human could, her blade trembling in her hands. "No," she said, her voice shaking but loud. "I belong to no one." The hunters sneered, raising their weapons, but when they lunged, she did not fall to her knees this time. She raised her blade, her arm steady, her heart burning with fire. The clash rang out, steel against steel, sparks flying through the night. The human fought beside her, his strikes powerful and precise. But for the first time she fought too, not as prey, not as a slave, but as someone who had chosen freedom. Her arms ached, fear screamed in her veins, but she pushed forward step by step, refusing to yield. At one point, a hunter struck her arm, and pain flared through her body. But instead of falling, she gritted her teeth and struck back. Her blade cut across his weapon, sending it clattering to the ground. The shock in his eyes gave her strength. Together, she and the human drove the hunters back, their unity stronger than chains. At last, the hunters fled into the night once more, their threats fading into the dark. The girl dropped to her knees, her chest heaving, her blade slipping from her hand. Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from something else. Relief, pride, freedom. The man knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "You fought," he said. "You chose freedom, and you won." Her lips trembled, her heart racing. "I am free," she whispered. The words strange and powerful on her tongue. For the first time, she believed them. The night after the battle was silent, the forest calm as if it had witnessed everything and now rested. The alien girl sat by the fire, her body sore, her hands raw from gripping the blade, but her heart beating with something new. She had fought, she had chosen, and she had survived. The chains that once defined her were broken, not by metal, not by fire, but by her own courage. The human sat across from her, sharpening his blade with slow, steady motions. The firelight flickered across his face, showing the calm strength that had carried them both through danger. She watched him quietly, her chest tight with feelings she could no longer ignore. Every time her eyes met his, her heart raced, her skin warmed, and the trembling inside her was no longer fear. She clutched the blanket closer, whispering softly, "All my life I thought touch meant pain, that closeness meant chains, but you showed me something else." The man looked up, his eyes steady. "What did I show you?" he asked gently. Her lips trembled, her glowing eyes shimmering with tears. "You showed me kindness, and safety, and something I do not know the name of." He set the blade aside and moved closer, kneeling beside her. His hand reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But she did not. When his fingers brushed her cheek, her body shivered. But it was not fear. It was a warmth that spread deep inside her. She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. "This," she whispered, "this feeling, it is not pain. It is not chains. What is it?" His voice was soft, carrying no demand, only truth. "It is peace, and maybe, for you and me, it is also the beginning of something called love." Her heart skipped, her breath catching in her throat. Love. The word was foreign, strange, but it felt right. She had never been Ivan such a thing, never been told she deserved it, yet here, in his arms, she believed it could be real. He pulled her gently into his embrace, wrapping her against his chest. For a moment she stiffened, the old memories fighting to return, but then his warmth melted them away, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Her trembling eased, her tears flowed, and her lips curved into something she had never known before, a smile. "I never thought this was possible," she whispered. "To feel safe, to feel wanted, to feel alive." The man rested his chin lightly on her hair, his voice firm. "You are alive, you are free, and you are more than what they told you." Her fingers clutched his shirt tightly, her voice breaking but filled with strength. "They said I was born for pain, but you gave me something else, something better." He pulled back slightly, enough to meet her eyes. "What did I give you?" he asked again. Her lips trembled as she answered. "You gave me pleasure. Not the cruel kind, but the true kind, the kind that makes the heart ache and heal at the same time." The fire crackled softly, the night wrapping around them. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest, breathing in the calm. Her scars still marked her skin, her past still lived in her memories, but now they no longer owned her. For the first time, she was not defined by chains, by pain, by fear. She was defined by her choice, by her courage, by the gentle human who had shown her that even broken things could be made whole. Her whisper lingered in the quiet night, fragile but full of truth. "This is pleasure. This is freedom. This is life." And in his arms, for the first time, she truly believed it.